Dear friends, our book for today is Inside the Haveli. Inside the Haveli is a novel written by Rama Mehta. For this particular novel, Rama Mehta was conferred Sahitya Academy Award in 1979. The story of the novel revolves around a young girl from Mumbai. She gets married to the son of a former Indian prince, and post-marriage she relocates to Udaipur in Rajasthan. This book was first published by Gulab Wazirani in 1977. The initial price of this book at the time of publication was only rupees 40. The book completes in about 264 pages. But before I move ahead, let me tell you a few things about this renowned author Rama Mehta. Rama Mehta was born in Nainital, India in 1923. She rose to become a top sociologist, lecturer, and even a novelist. And her non-fiction writings include The Western Educated Hindu Woman, The Hindu Divorced Woman, and From Parda to Modernity. One of the first women to be appointed to India's Foreign Service, Rama Mehta was forced to resign from her position upon marriage. She died in 1978. The novel has received several compliments. Some are as follows. A wonderfully interesting account. Women should not miss it, neither should men, said John Kenneth Galbraith, Canadian-born economist, public official, and a diplomat. Says novelist Anita Desai, I remember the surprised delight with which I first came across Rama Mehta's novel and encountered the freshness of her prose, the simplicity and tenderness of her evocation, and an ancient and traditional way of life and the understanding she brought to it. Throughout her life, the principal theme of Rama Mehta's writings was the position of women in tradition-bound but rapidly changing India. For in addition to her three novels, she wrote a number of sociological books about the contemporary Indian woman, including the Western Educated Hindu Woman and the Hindu Divorced Woman. And just before she died in June 1978, Mehta completed a study of women in the Hindu nuclear family. It is therefore appropriate that her last novel, Inside the Haveli, should have won, though posthumously, that year's Sahitya Academy Award for the best Indian novel in English. In essence, it is a modern classic about an independent young woman's struggle to hold on to her identity in a traditional world. Book no way has a very engrossing storyline. As mentioned earlier, it is about Geeta, an educated and vivacious Bombay girl who marries into a very conservative family and abruptly finds herself living in Parda in her husband's ancestral Haveli at Udaipur. Faced with this and even certain other age-old traditions that threaten to snuff out her independence and progressive views, Geeta puts up an unnoticed fight to maintain her modernity that she has always lived by. In the book, she puts up a very, very unnoticed in the sense that it's a very quiet kind of a fight, and you can't really discern whether she's. It's very nicely written. You can't discern whether she's getting aggressive or she's taking it on to herself. It is always tough for an author to churn out a novel without a piercing storyline, which Rama Mehta has done quite successfully. She has detailed it so very well that one gets to feel as if she was part of the family and has lived with them for a duration of time only to write this novel. Some other important characters apart from Geeta in the novel are Ajay Singh, who happens to be the husband of Geeta, Pari, an old maid, Lakshmi, another maid, Vijay happens to be Geeta's daughter, Sita is Lakshmi's daughter. The novel depicts the beginnings of a social change in the life of women from Mewar who continued until the 20th century to practice the system of parda long after Hindu women had discarded it as an outmoded custom. It gives a detailed account of old Udaipur, something like, they eat in silver thalis. In that manner, Inside the Haveli is an excellent novel about a young college educated girl of Bombay who marries the son of an ex-prime minister of the former princely state of Mewar and comes to her husband's traditional Haveli in Udaipur. The moment she steps out of the train, Geeta, the main protagonist, gets the biggest shock of her life, for not only is her face instantaneously covered by her women relatives and maidservants who take complete charge of her, but she also immediately finds herself engulfed in a pattern of life which is totally alien to her modern upbringing in Bombay. As soon as she reaches home, she is further shocked by the realization that the men and women live in different parts of the huge Haveli without any contact with each other. Indeed, life inside the Haveli is governed by an impossibly rigid etiquette of do's and don'ts, and for her, as for all other women, there is no life outside the high walls of the Haveli. The youthful Geeta finds herself unable to reconcile with the idea of spending the rest of her life in Parda, but at the same time she sees no escape from this outdated way of life, for her husband is too deeply rooted in his traditions and too deeply attached to his parents to take up a job in some other city. Moreover, she gradually comes to realize that in spite of their exacting demands of conformity with the family tradition, her parents-in-laws are essentially warm-hearted and generous people. Slowly and painfully, Geeta finds herself adjusting with the life in the Haveli, with the thought of merging her identity and that of her children in the tradition of her husband's ancient family. But in the process, she succeeds in initiating certain reforms for the women of these ancient Havelis by starting some literary or literacy classes for them and by sending the female children to school. Her woman relatives, of course, oppose her plans, but her father-in-law, realizing that with the end of the princely era, the old pattern of life could not possibly continue for long, supports Geeta's attempt to make the women less dependent on the Havelis. It is a fascinating novel in which the author has succeeded in conveying the essence and feel of a world which is fast disappearing. Rather, I would say, I'm telling the story after a long while. This book was written in 70. This old era has almost disappeared. It's totally disappeared, I would say. Jivan Nivas is the center stage around which the entire clan for ruling class Ranas stay. Traditionally, these families have also served the Maharana of Udaipur, who was like God to them. They all seem to be together, but yes, there are internal rivalries and conflicts too. A change of mindset is in the offing when Geeta is blessed with a daughter and celebrations break through. That too when a daughter is born. Lakshmi, their maid, leaves the Haveli and with some misunderstanding. Thereafter, her daughter Sita is brought up by Bhagwat Singh Ji's wife, who happens to be Gita's mother-in-law. There is almost a chapter on young Sita's wedding, who is the daughter of Lakshmi. The scene is very emotional and very well described. It gives a vivid description of such marriages. Author has crafted some original and interesting words too, such as twig fire lit in a earthenware pot. Then you have butter lamp and also fire hot rotis, to name a few. Before I close this program, I would like to tell you that the author has taken a lot of effort in writing this particular novel, and that is one reason I would not like to bring the end of the book to you, which if you are interested, you should read it and find it out for yourself. Overall, it's a very slow-moving book, I would say, but well detailed, with precise punctuation and simple language, easy to understand. The book doesn't sink in you unless you complete it in 5 to 6 attempts, nor does it have any recall quotient, barring a peep into the Haveli, because the story does not have a very piercing, or rather I would say it does not have a piercing storyline. The storyline is extremely faint. You have a lot of activity in this book, a lot of characters, and it's very difficult to remember even the names of the character. And but yes, once you finish the book, you'll find that after a while, it probably will not make any impact, except for one single impact, that you've read about the Havelis of Udaipur. You can pick up this book to understand what really goes on inside a Haveli. I would give the book 8 out of 10, even when I did not like it so much, because it meets the purpose for which it was written. So friends, that's all I have for today. Goodbye and see you soon.